Yeah, hello and welcome back to ConWorxx IV, Spielworks' own small, friendly, cozy online gaming convention. My name is Uli Blennemann, and please, as usual, if you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat window. And I now have the best reviewer of board games worldwide as my guest, Mr. Dan Thoreau, aka Space Biff. And it's my pleasure having you as my guest, Dan. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Uli?
Yeah, with Spiel looming, I'm somewhat, not stressed is not the right term, but there's a lot to do. But otherwise, I'm doing fine. And speaking of Space Bit, by the way, you know this routine already, Dan, when we played online. I have to again bring
Hello,
the
Biff.
local Biff in here. It's not a space Biff, but this is our Biff. It's his name, so he is always happy to see the space Biff. So, having done this, for people who do not really know you, what are you doing, Dan?
That's a good question. I didn't know I was going to be answering questions.
Ah, only one.
I write a website called Space Biff. It is a hobby. This is not my day job, but I write Space Biff, and we do a podcast, and it's just trying to do the best we can do to write about board games in a way that is critical and insightful.
Yeah, and I can only agree that and people, I just put in the website link. Check the website out, and Dan is also doing some podcasts, but it's mainly the written word, which I also love. We talked about this last year. But what was our topic for today? What did we agree on, Dan?
Well, I hope you don't regret this, but
Maybe.
what it is going to be today is I have crowdsourced a number of questions. So let's
Ouch.
see. I
Ouch. I'm a
I
little bit scared, I have to say, but I'm
yeah.
also interested. Maybe if I totally disappear, if there's a blank screen, you just continue talking, Dan.
Okay. I will keep that in mind. So what I did was I reached out to a number of your fans and I asked them, what questions, the hard-hitting, difficult questions, would you like to ask Uli at his cozy cottage convention? Now, I didn't get quite as many questions as I wanted. I did get quite a few. So some of these came from a website for what to ask a German person on a date. So I mixed them together. I don't know what they all are. I'm just this is a process of discovery for me as much as for you, Uli.
Yeah.
So we have 30 questions, and it looks like not quite 30 minutes to get through all of them.
So I have to be fast.
Yes, this is a blitz round, but some of them you may want to take your time because your answers could be used against you.
Wonderful.
Okay, so here we go. Here's the first one. Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you planning to get more copies of some of your recent titles, such as The Cost, Pilgrim, Smoky Valley, and Tribune?
Yes. Yes. We will actually change our policies somewhat starting next year. So far, we only did a single edition once, and then we try to license games. But we will change that if there is demand for some games, we will do second, maybe third editions of some games. So yeah, some at least some of these titles are a possibility for the future. And this is a wonderful question because we thought about this in the recent months. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the second question, and this does tie into it. Why do you print 1,000 copies and not say 900 copies or 10,000 copies?
Yeah, 900 or 1000, there is not a huge difference, and a lot of printers say the minimum is 1000 copies. Then you're getting 1100 copies because by contract they are allowed to overprint by 10%, and they always do. And that's what it is, but 10,000 copies is a lot different. You need to be in distribution for sure, and you need to invest a lot of money. The market, in my opinion, is difficult, and I don't want to. I need to sleep well or reasonably well. And if I know in storage there are still 8,000 games of a title, I could not sleep well.
That makes sense. So, and that answers this next question a little bit, actually. How does your intentional scale of project let you pursue the things that you enjoy?
Sometimes more and sometimes better, but I enjoy working on games, so that makes it easier to work long hours. But if I need time for something, I try to find that time. Sometimes in a better way, sometimes in a worse way. Yeah.
What is your favorite place on Earth?
Billerbeck, my home here.
Why?
I simply like it because it's so quiet.
Yeah.
I'm used to the environments. I'm a person who needs to know what is next, the right and left. But I do not normally, apart from a hockey stadium, I do not like crowds too much. And so that it's why it's my favorite place. And it's also climate-wise, although climate is definitely changing and it's getting hotter and hotter, but it's still in this moderate climate I'm feeling at home. And another thing which is important and which you hear here, my language skills are not too good. So I like to live in an environment which is German language speaking, because in English I may only have one word for hate or love. But in Germany, I have 15 or 20 or 25, and I hear and I notice the nuances. And by reading, yes, I read English books, but reading in German is much better. Also, talking to people for me. You know.
Okay. What is the history of your long-term collaboration with artist Harald Lieske?
What is the origin, or what is the reason?
Well, just the history. You've had a long collaboration.
Yes. First, I like his work. So if you do not like the work of an artist, you won't work with him, even if he's on a personal level wonderful. But Harald does not live too far from me. He lives at Münster, which is the next largest city here, and he now does digital work too, but he draws by hand, which I find very appealing. And my history is that he was also gaming author, that he sent in some stuff and I liked it. We met, and that was even for Phalanx games in the 2000s. So my collaboration with him did not start with Spielworxx, has a longer history. Yeah.
Okay. If you had to snap your fingers and erase one gaming mechanism from the world, what would it be?
That is a fantastic question. Oh, and I'm so stupid. I do not know a good answer. I would erase, but that's not a mechanism. I would erase immediately stupid first player rules in the rules booklet. So last player
Sure.
who has traveled to that. So I always, oh no, please not. But mechanisms, stupid ones. I think most gaming mechanisms have merit in their genre, and I'm a curious person, so mechanism I would not erase. Probably 15 minutes from now I'm thinking about, I'm having why is this a mechanism, but right now, no.
Well, that question comes courtesy of Chris Snyder, who I know you know.
Yeah.
Uli, what makes you smile?
Seeing a good game, seeing a Roosters hockey victory, being here at home, nice weather, although with climate change this changes, seeing Biff, seeing you, so many things that make me smile.
Where do you see the place of the traditional heavy Euro game in a market that is increasingly dominated by hybrid titles?
Another excellent question. I think yes, what we'll see in the next couple of years is more family type games, more hybrid games for a special audience in this large market. But I think that the true gamers games in Germany, Kennerspiele or Expertenspiele, that they always have their place. And I think even a stronger place or a more prominent place than 6, 7 years ago, because so many more gamers, they are now experienced gamers. They may have started
Sure.
in 2010, 12, 15 as novices, and now they are experienced gamers, and quite a few want more. And especially narrative games, serious games, there's so much to explore. Yeah.
Yeah. That said, how do you feel about the rise of point salad as the near default for strategy games?
That is maybe, it's also not a mechanism, but I would erase that a lot. And I have to briefly look into the chat because Hans is saying for that was in regarding the smiling, a bottle of Prosecco after a hard day at Essen. Yeah, that makes me smiling too. Maybe not a bottle, but 2 glasses, so that would be fine. But point salad, I think it's often an excuse for balancing and that everybody feels included in a fair way, whatever that is. That means you are getting points if you're going to the left, you're getting more points if you're going to the right, you're getting points if you're going straight ahead or if you're going backwards. So yeah, of course, in the end, the better player gets more points. But what does it mean? We are playing a game for 3 hours, Dan, and you are having 312 points and I'm having 275. What does it
Yeah.
really mean? And I've done the same thing. Kohle and Kolonie, a game I did 10 years ago with Thomas Spitzer. I think you won the game with 180 points. Sometimes it's that way. But if a lot of your decisions are not meaningful enough, I hate it. It's so open. Or this term that is now used a lot. First, it's coming from the video games, sandbox. What is a sandbox game? Yeah, we can talk about this for 2 hours, but I think it's also one of these terms that often means, yeah, there's point salad in there, do whatever you want. But maybe it's just me, and of course, point salad means everybody is clapping you at your shoulder because you are making some progress. It feels positive,
Yeah.
also coming from video games, of course.
What is your favorite book, film, or other piece of art about mortality?
What a good question. What a good question about mortality. I'm not a movie cinematic guy, so let's keep this apart. And it's definitely not a book about mortality, but it has mortality included. And it's a strange thing that I'm now mentioning is it's Ernst Jünger and in Stahlgewittern, in is it Storm of Steel? I'm not sure. And Ernst Jünger, that is a book on the First World War, and he was it's not an anti-war book like All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
Because he served, but he was wounded 13 times. He was highly decorated, more right-wing but he was a very talented writer, so really a wonderful writer, and he can make the horrors of war, although it's not an anti-war book, very vivid. So by reading it, you're thinking, how is this possible that these people did this for 4 years, and he fought at the Western Front from 14 to 18 and survived as a young officer, and you know how the rates of mortality were to survive there. So
Yeah.
and that was fascinating. in a strange way, because as I said, this is not Remark, this is a totally different angle, but I can only highly recommend that book. And he has also a very small book, it's called Wäldchen 125, which is crops, so small forest. 125, it's just a small part in 1918 of the Western Front, but this may be even more explicit. It's just short, but great stuff. Yeah.
What do you see as the benefits and drawbacks of moving production of Spielworxx games to China?
Benefits, so drawbacks, of course. First, ethics. It's different work ethics. Another drawback is that you can hardly control when you have the games in your warehouse. Yes, the shipping situation has become much better compared to 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. That's for sure, but still games can be a week at customs here in a port, and that can ruin your plans. Or somebody is even complaining, why don't I have the game already in my hands? But the advantages are, first, it's a lot cheaper, and a lot of people, games are expensive. That's what it is. Games are very expensive, and if you can save something, that means a lot. Second thing is, technologically, Chinese printers these days are one step above most European printers. They can do more. They can screen print on wooden pieces. And a lot of people now expect this in our hobby. Stickering definitely is not good enough these days, for example.
Yeah.
Or if you have just wooden figures. Yeah, I'm a cube pusher too, so I don't care if the resources are black resources is coal and silver cubes, that is stone. I don't care, but a lot of people do care. Yeah.
Do you see the possibility in the medium or the long term of moving production back to Europe?
Yeah, I think so. I think so that it's possible, because some of the printers over here, they try to now screen print. They try to improve, because they have noticed that lots of people move their business to China. So I think it's possible. And I'm a pessimist, so I also had Ignazi here today, but which is difficult if we are in the same virtual room, but we were very positive, very optimistic. But if we are together, that can be quite hard. So I'm a pessimist, and I think we will have lots of trouble with China in the next 5 years. And this, of course, is a totally different thing than the war of Russian aggression against Ukraine. But I think it will happen, and that will naturally mean that you have to move back some stuff.
Who is your favorite Protestant Reformation thinker?
I have to say that it's Melanchthon, but I'm so, because my wife, she did her master's thesis on Melanchthon, and that's why. Although this is quite a few years ago, I read this, and it's fascinating. But I'm in Germany we say Schmalspur historian, so I'm which is very limited historian. I'm mainly a 19th, 20th century thing. So everything before is actually, to me, is ancient history. So I'm a historian, but I'm bad.
Well, I'm impressed how quickly you had an answer for that question. That came from our What to Ask a German on a Date site. So I guess every German can answer that quickly, as opposed to Americans.
If this is from a date site, this is surprising.
It was uncommon questions. So many people speculate that the board game market is due for a major correction thanks to the volume of game releases every year. Do you agree or disagree, and why?
Yeah, people have said this for so many years, and it's still more games are coming out. So I don't know, but I think the total volume of games produced has to go down a little bit. But because right now storage spaces in the US, in Europe are full. So warehouses are full with older titles because during the pandemic, especially the larger companies printed too much and too many games. And I see that more distributors are and more publishers are reluctant. So I think it will go down. If it's really a correction, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Some board games from like the 70s and 80s, they're just as fun today as they were in earlier days. Of course, some others have aged not so well. What do you feel makes a design timeless?
Wonderful questions. Timeless is probably that in that word that it was great in the 70s and it's still great in the 2020s. So right now, 50 years afterwards. But I think that, and I'm mainly coming from the games market, that mechanics are interesting. Stupid term now coming that it's fun to play, because what is fun in gaming? And some mechanics that are now in the hobby market are just seem to explode, like trick taking. These are traditional mechanics that have been played in Germany for hundreds of years. Skat, Doppelkopf are traditional trick-taking games. So that is something that is timeless. And of course, it's also decision-making. Although decision-making can be just rolling a die and implementing the result. And this could be something, yeah.
Yeah. Favorite ice hockey team?
That is easy. The Roosters, the Iserlohn Roosters, of course.
What are your thoughts on the Solarius mission debacle?
This is hurtful. I try to move this as far away as possible, but this hurt Odie, that hurt Mike and me tremendously. And I did not see this coming because the company did North American Railways by Per Sylvester, and we had no problem at all. So that went, and so I thought this is a great partner. But there will be a new edition of Solarius Mission coming from Dexka Games, I think is the name. So it's an Asian company, but it will have an English language rules booklet. And Mike actually, I think Ode was involved too. They did additional work for that game. So it's not a one-to-one reprint, but it's a new edition. So after all the years, there is something new, and they will be at Essen. But I had to detach myself a lot because that was, as you said, that was a debacle. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is there a certain type of game that you, Uli, as a game player, as opposed to a professional, that you gravitate toward personally?
Yeah, I first historical games with an historical games topic I like a lot, and then my favorite genre is CDGs, card-driven games. Again, going back to this traditional mechanic that you have several cards in your hand, and you decide in which sequence, in which order you're playing them. But here you have even several choices how you play this card, for points, for the event, and I like it. And again, it's a tool. It's not the complete game, but you have your board and more. Yeah.
What game do you think should be reprinted, whether by you or somebody else?
An infamous Traffic. Today.
Yeah.
Yesterday. I know it will be at a certain point, but it needs to be reprinted immediately. By me, I'm still looking forward to Lieber Bayerisch Sterben, which is a game from the 80s by Karl-Heinz Schmiel, who did Die Macher. But now we're back to an older question of yours, because this is a game that hasn't aged well. Die Macher, in my opinion, has aged very well, but Lieber Bayerisch Sterben, and Kalle and I, we played the game a couple of years ago again, and we thought, wow, Oh, no. This needs to be a redesign for sure.
In light of a certain publisher fiasco, which shall remain nameless, what are your thoughts on artwork generated by artificial intelligence?
Nice that you are saying by a company that is unnamed. Very difficult to say. I think first the interviews that the unnamed company and the unnamed design house behind the game that they did in several places, they were, in my opinion, beyond belief. So I'd
That's
never thought
surprising.
that you could do such interviews. And I'd love to do only work with artists without artificial intelligence artwork. Will there be artificial intelligence artwork in the future in games? I'm 100% sure, and I'm not even sure if I notice. But this is totally decoupled from the question of ethics. How are you handling this?
Hmm.
And but I think AI. Why should AI or the question of AI and its usage be outside of the gaming world? It will have some influence.
So settle this debate for us. What is a war game?
Can't. I can't. I don't think actually that Votes for Women, which is a great game, it's a wonderful game, is a war game. But
Mm.
and I hate it when you have your desk and your drawers and there's a war game and there's a historical game. In my opinion, historical game is a better term.
Yeah.
I'm from that time when war games were hex encounters. So, and you
Hmm.
were playing with 50 old people of that age, and anything that had not hexes wasn't a war game. So, when the first games came, which had box to box, point to point movement, oh, this is a war game. And in a way, it's so difficult. So, I hate that question.
So here actually, I'm going to read the next question exactly as written. Because you couldn't answer the previous question, what should a war game be? So it sounds like maybe you think that we should change the term to historical game.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the better choice. Historical game is better. Political game, serious game. But again, Votes for Women is not a, in my opinion, not a war game, because yeah, you have this conflict, but it's, for me there is some war involved. Some actual shooting doesn't have to be a land war, conventional warfare. But yeah, but what do I know? Not enough, apparently.
This is off script, but I'm curious. Harold's game, Flashpoint South China Sea, also does not include any shooting. Does that qualify as a war game?
Very good question again. So I'm always saying very good question to think a little bit longer, uh, which you immediately noticed, of course. um, to me, not. To me, not. I think it's more a political game. I would put it as a political game, like Hans is saying here in the chat 1960, the making of the president is a good example. It's more, yeah, and I agree, it's more a political game. Yeah.
Hmm. So, in compiling these questions, one thing that came up is everyone that I know thinks of you very positively. Who? So you don't think so?
Well, I don't know.
Some board gamers have said that you are too affable, too friendly. What is
Okay.
your response?
They should go to hell. I will teach them. No, I think First, I have my bad days. I have really my bad days, and sometimes it can be at Essen next week. And if I have stressful 5 hours and somebody rubs me wrongly, that something comes out for this. But I think friendliness is important. And we see this with social media, and we see this in politics over here. Same thing in the US. It's hate, 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 and louder and louder and louder. And it's definitely not for the better. And I think if you are friendly to people, something good may come out of it. Maybe not, but the chances that something good is coming out of this are definitely higher than if you are unfriendly.
Yeah. Well, Uli, I fear we're out of time.
So, and I'm glad we are out of time now, because these questions were were hard. Not that I want to say goodbye.
I'll skip the last couple, but I want to ask you the last one.
Yeah, please.
Who is your favorite board game critic?
I think it's Dan. I think it's a certain Dan.
Oh,
for sure.
I don't know where that question came from. Okay.
It's actually it's true. It's not fishing for compliments here. You know this, and I'm always stating this. And people who are not used to your work, they should check it out for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of you to say. Well, Uli, thank you so much for our answering our blitz round of questions.
Yeah, and thank you so much to all listeners, to all viewers, of course, for your questions, Dan. That was a pleasure. And Hans has a good statement here. Bad days when the bottle of Prosecco is gone at the fridge. At Essen. So I have more than one bottle there, so I can refill. But that's a good one, Hans. Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. So in a couple of minutes, actually in very few minutes, Cole will be my next guest, and then Drew is joining us. I will ask him, of course, for an infamous question. That's also a good thing. Infamous traffic. And yes. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye, Dan. Bye.